Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Johansson. I work for REPOA. REPOA is the policy think tank based in Tanzania. Our core business is generation of knowledge. And we do this through research, capacity building and training, and outreach program. The flow of my presentation, I will start with the introduction, where I'll give you a brief about Tanzania, where it came from, and the policy reforms and the macroeconomic performance. Thereafter, I go to the overview of FDI in Tanzania, and later I will check the FDI and the manufacturing sector in Tanzania. The fourth part will be devoted to literature review, which I'll check on the theoretical and the empirical issues on what others have said regarding this subject. Then the next part will be methodology, findings, conclusion, and recommendation is devoted to the last part. To start, Tanzania attained its independence in 1961. Thereafter, 6 years later, it adopted the Arusha Declaration, in which the principles of socialism and self-reliance was adopted, and the pattern of ownership was changed from the private sector to the government. Following the internal and external crisis, including the war with Uganda, the oil crisis, the economy of Tanzania was not operating well. Therefore, 1980s to 1990s, the country has to adopt a structural adjustment program for the purpose of restoring back the macroeconomic performance. It was during this time that the economy of Tanzania was liberalized. Private sector was to take over the drive of the economy. And the manufacturing sector, since then, it was marked as one of the key sectors to drive the economy. This necessitated in 1996 the launch of sustainable industrial development, which aimed at influencing the sustainable development of the industry. After having enacted the Industrial Development Policy, 1997, the act which establishing the Tanzania Investment Center was launched, which consequently resulted in the establishment of Tanzania Investment Center for the purpose of promoting investment in Tanzania, manufacturing sector being the one. Looking at the overall performance at the macro level during this time of liberalization and privatization, the performance has been performing well. In terms, it has been very positive. The real GDP has grown for the average of 6.9% from 2001 to 2011. Though in 2009, the growth slowed down because of the impact of financial crisis which occurred in 2008. In terms of inflation, the averaging has been 5.8%, 2009 to 2009. Then it reached double digit, which is 10.3% and 12.1 average, and 5.5% in 2010. Peaked again 2011 to reach 12.7%. Now people ask, why this paper? We all believe that FDI has a positive contribution, positive benefit to the economic growth of the country. And one of them being argued is the technology transfer. Thus, most of the countries, Tanzania being one of them, they have been offering the incentive package with the notion that FDI is associated with technological spillover. Now, as a case of the Tanzania, we don't know how really this notion that incentive package we are offering is really directed to technological spillover. Now, this study wants to investigate to see if really the investing package that Tanzania is offering, it has a positive relation with technological spillover, both at horizontal and vertical. Overview of FDI. In that table, I'm trying to show the FDI in three scenarios, looking at the global, Africa, and the position of Tanzania in that. Looking at the two, global and Africa, the FDI flow shows to be very consistent. But for the case of Tanzania, there's a mixed results. It has been 0.9 in 2005. Then it continued declining. Again, 2007 shot up at least to 0.5. 2008, it shot up again. But 2009, it declined. This is well known to everyone because of the financial crisis and the other internal crisis like a power shortage and so on. Again, it started picking up. But although the table shows the mixed results of the FDI flow in Tanzania, Tanzania took the lead of leading net FDI in East Africa region in 2011 by recording 1.1 billion. The FDI flow in Tanzania originated from the country like United Kingdom, which is leading, and this is well known because Tanzania was colonized by the British. So actually the British are in a good position to understand what kind of natural resources that the country has, and so that to motivate them to continue investing in the country. Other countries are following. Types of FDI marketing in Tanzania. Tanzania, we have all three types of FDI flow. Those which are market seeking, like those in the industry of beer, cement, and sugar. Those which are export oriented, which is directed to mining and textile. Then we have FDI in infrastructure and utilities on the area like energy, port, telecommunication, and so on. In terms of ownership, Tanzania we categorize three types of ownership. Either is full foreign owned, or national owned, or joint venture. The manufacturing sector in the FDI in Tanzania. The history of manufacturing sector in Tanzania dates back 1950s, where the sector was actually taken as a source of raw materials. Thus, we have to provide raw materials for the developed countries, and we get the finished goods. After the Arusha Declaration, which was focusing on self-reliance and socialism principles, the manufacturing sector, the ownership pattern, which was shifted from private sector to the government, led to the increase of the share of the public sector from 18% in 1966 to almost 33% in 1970s. Thereafter, the share of manufacturing investment in the country rose from, again, it was from 18% in 1960s to about 30 to 40% in 1975 to 1985. Other policies to support the development of manufacturing sector in Tanzania is being emphasized under the National Vision 2025, which is aimed to make the country semi-industrialized and lead competitive economy. Tanzania manufacturing sector has been divided in 6 zones: Western Zone, Central, and Coastal Zone. Now, in terms of performance of manufacturing of FDI in the macroeconomic sectors in Tanzania, if you look at that graph, you'll find that manufacturing is still leading with a green yellow at the top, and the other sectors are following. Literature review of this study. This part is categorized in 2 parts. One is the theoretical, and the other one is empirical review. The theoretical part tries to look at the theory base for this study. And under this part, I have 2 theories, dependent theories and industrial organization think. The dependent theory is the one which is proclaiming, okay, the underdeveloped of developing countries is not because they are not integrated with the developed countries, but it's the way how they are being integrated. Thus, it looks only on tangible issues, and it sees FDI as harmful to developing countries. While the industrial organization theory took both tangible and intangible benefit of FDI by proclaiming an electrical model, taking the advantage of ownership, localization, and the internationalization. Now, positive spillover on this sector usually can be, these companies need to have assets such as knowledge, technological advancement, organization, marketing, and managerial skills for them to be able to influence the technological spillover. And in that matters, the spillover can either be vertical or horizontal. However, the country that is gaining this spillover need to have at least the threshold that will require them to be able to absorb this technological spillover. And this includes education, technology, infrastructure, financial market, and health. Transfer of technology can either be through imitation, competitive pressure among the firms, purchasing intermediate inputs, training employees. In terms of empirical review, there have been several methodologies of looking at this study. There are those who have used cross-section data and those who have used the panel data. Some of the studies which have been conducted in this area include Coco, Moran in Mexico, who found that FDI spillover effects are not automatic and have provided conflicting evidence of their effect. This again, 1977 in Mexico, found that apart from employment generation and capital formation, FDI may lead to technological transfer to local firms. Other study by Aitken in Venezuela had both negative and positive spillover effect. Barrios, the same side in Spain, positive spillover correlation between labor productivity and FDI presence. Other studies, as just mentioned there. Now I'll move to the part of the methodology. The analytical framework for this study has been developed from Jordan study of 2003 and Tongat 2004 models. This frame uses domestic productivity to capture FDI spillover effect in domestic firms. And the production function is given as follows. Domestic productivity is a function of capital, labor, presence of foreign concentration, which is represented by X, and Z is the vector of other factors that influence domestic productivity. In that manner, X, which is the presence of foreign concentration, consider productivity as a function of technology and is being measured by a funder index. Those are the ranges of how to analyze the S-finder index. When one dealing with this touch model, need to take into consideration the factors which affect productivity, which is foreign capital, the degree of concentration, economies of scale, capital intensity, and the availability of skilled labor. Those are the variables that will be derived in this model. Now, my model will test two issues. FDI inflows have improved the domestic manufacturing firms' productivity. Second, domestic firms benefit both from vertical and the horizontal technological spillover. Source of my data. This data has been taken from the Ministry of Industry and Trade. The Ministry conducted the baseline survey in 2007, which covered 356 establishments. The purpose of the study was to form the base of monitoring the performance of industrial sector in Tanzania. Now, my model estimation is given as follows. Domestic productivity is a function of FDI, capital intensity, labor, health finder index, vertical spillover, horizontal spillover, and S is the economies of scale. Now, on the part of the findings, the summary statistic and the other issues have been dropped out for this presentation. I started looking at the behavior of this variable that I have on my model. If you look on those variables, one thing before, I go that, just understand that, the regional and the industrial fixed asset has to be controlled when one using the cross-section model. That if they're being controlled, that means the relationship between the FDI and the productivity will be negative. But once if not controlled, it will tend to show positive. Because firms have a tendency of investing in the regions where there's a higher productivity. That if you are not controlled, they will all show that there's a positive correlation even if there's no any foreign funded firm in that area. That's if you look on the table of correlation, when those variables have been controlled, you see all variables will show the positive correlation, except for the FDI and the Healthfinder index. For the FDI, this is okay. It can be explained that because this variable have been controlled, that effect, that's why they're showing the negative correlation, while for the Healthfinder index, is probably, Healthfinder index is being influenced by the output per employee. It's likely the labor are unskilled, thus the output are very minimal to influence that. In estimating my model, all principles that need to be observed were observed, like testing for multicollinearity, dealing with the outliers, and then the heteroscedastic model was corrected and were run to give that results. The R squares showed 0.68%, which almost 68% of the variation in domestic productivity are being explained by the specified set of explanatory variables. Now the correlation. The domestic productivity and FDI has a negative correlation, which implies that the FDI has not improved the domestic productivity. That means there has been no technological spillover to local domestic firms in Tanzania, and it is statistically significant. The capital intensity, yes, is positive. The labor, skilled labor, positive. Healthfinder index is positive, but it's not significant. And this, as I was said before, is being influenced by output per employee. That is likely still our firms are still using the unskilled labor with the output is very minimal. Yes. So it's just it's a necessary, but it's not a sufficient condition to make the Healthfinder index to be significant. In terms of the vertical technological spillover, it shows that there's a negative correlation with the domestic productivity, which implies that there's no backward and forward linkages. The horizontal shows is positive, implies that, the local industries are expanding. But when you look to the vertical, that means there's no expansion. The marginal cost of production is still high. That means the downstream industry cannot benefit from this. Summary of the study, just take you through. The study was looking on the manufacturing sector in Tanzania on the perspective of the FDI spillover. Two theories were the main base for this study, dependent and industrial theory. The methodology has used cross-section data. The finding rejected both hypotheses. There has been no technological spillover in terms of domestic productivity. Rather, there has been technological spillover in the horizontal. The industry within the same subsector are benefiting the technological spillover, but across sectors which is vertical or inter-industry is not benefiting. Now, the position of FDI to benefit local firms and the economy at large in Tanzania is no longer an area of controversial. But the current debate is how to make FDI spillover effect to occur to all manufacturing firms and foster economic growth, particularly the vertical one. Now the study recommends the following. The government should strengthen collaboration with investors so as to improve the education sector. enhancing skills and means contribution to trade and investment, including absorption of new technology brought by FDI, continuing rehabilitating the Dar es Salaam port infrastructure, including modernization of port security, especially in cargo handling. The government to ensure a win-win situation, partnership with investors is in place. Policy rules and regulation should be observed when granting investor permit to investors upon proving satisfactory financial capacity required for investment. Thank you.